Welcome to another free tip of the week brought to you by ExcelLearningZone.com. I am Richard Rost. In this lesson, we're going to talk about calculating overtime pay using Microsoft Excel. In this lesson, we're going to take a simple employee timesheet that's got the employee name, the pay rate, the number of hours they've worked for the week, and we're going to say, okay, if they've worked up to 40 hours, calculate normal pay. If they've worked up to 50 hours, calculate time and a half for those extra 10 hours if they work them. And for double time, it's anything over 50 hours. How do we do that in Excel? Well, let's take a look. This week's tip is about calculating employee overtime. Here I have a real simple list of employees, each employee's pay rate, and the hours they worked Monday through Saturday each day. The first thing I'll do is calculate the total hours that that employee worked for the week. So this will be total hours, and we'll say equals the sum, open parentheses, and then select our range right there. Press enter, and this employee worked 41 hours that week. I'll click and autofill down, and there are the totals for each employee. Notice I'm getting a little error message. Drop that box down. It says formula omits adjacent cells. That just means that Excel sees more data next to the range, the pay rate over here, for example, and thinks that maybe that should be included. I'll hit ignore because in this case, Excel is wrong. So now I have their total hours. Next, I want to say if the employee has worked 40 hours or less, they get paid standard time, just 1 times their pay rate. If they've worked between 40 and 50 hours, they get paid time and a half, and 50 hours or more, they get paid double time for those extra hours. So first, let's calculate how many normal hours they've worked. Normal hours is anything 40 and under. We can calculate that with a simple if function, equals if I2 is where their total hours are located. If I2 is less than or equal to 40, comma, put that number here, I2. Otherwise, put a 40 here. If they've worked more than 40 hours, we're going to credit them with 40. And if I autofill this down, you can see if they worked more than 40 hours, such as these guys, they get a 40. Otherwise, they get the number of hours they worked. That's the total number of normal hours that each employee has worked. Now, to figure out time and a half, we're going to actually use 2 columns here. The first column, we're going to figure out how many hours over that they've worked in the week. All right, so another if function equals if I2 is greater than 40, then put in here I2 minus 40. So the difference between how many they actually worked and 40. Otherwise, 0 because they haven't worked any time and a half hours. And we'll autofill that down. And you can see here, this is actually the difference between the total hours they worked and 40. So this guy's 1 for 41, 11 for 51, 35 because this guy worked 75, and these are both 0 because this person didn't work more than 40 hours. So we'll call this our overage. That's how many hours they worked over 40 hours. Now, using that number, we can calculate how many of those hours were between 40 and 50, time and a half hours. Since time and a half is between 40 and 50, that's 10 hours they could get time and a half for. So right here, we'll call this, let's just call it time half to keep it simple. We'll say equals if this guy here, K2 in this case, is greater than 10, then put in here 10. Right? If they've got 11, they're only getting paid for 10 of them. Otherwise, it's that value. Easy enough. That guy gets 1, and drop this down. This guy's getting 10. This guy's getting 10, and these guys get 0. Because you can only get paid 10 hours of time and a half from 40 to 50. And now finally, we can calculate double time. This is going to say equals if our initial hours, I2, is greater than 50, then calculate the difference between I2 and 50, otherwise 0. All right, this guy only worked 41 hours, so he's got a 0. Drag it down. This guy worked 51 hours, so he gets 1 hour of double time. This guy worked 75 hours, so he's getting 25 hours of double time. I wouldn't want to pay that paycheck. Let's apply some quick formatting using the Format Painter. I'll click here, hit the Format Painter, and paint over these guys. Then let's narrow these columns up just a little bit. There we go. Now I have all the data that I need to actually calculate the amount to pay each employee. I've got the pay rate here in B2. I've got their normal hours here in J2. Time and a half is here in L2. And double time is in M2. I'll put that all together here in a pay column. We'll say equals their pay rate, which is parentheses B2 times their normal hours, J2, plus another set of parentheses, pay rate times time and a half, which is L2, times 1.5, because it's time and a half. Close parentheses, plus, and I'll slide over so you can see it in color over here. You can watch this, or you can watch down here. B2 times their double time hours, which is M2, times 2.0, or just 2. Close parentheses. That's going to add them all up. Press Enter. Click. Drag it down. Need to make this column a little bit wider to see all the data. And there we go. Let's see if it makes sense. This guy's getting $10 an hour for 40 normal hours. That's 400. And 1 hour of time and a half, which is $15, $4.15. This guy's getting 40 normal hours, 10 hours of time and a half, and then 1 hour of double time. And if you add all that up, it's 400, and then another 150, and then 20 more. Yep, that's right. And if you do the math, all of these should come out just about right. And that is how you can use Excel to calculate employee overtime. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more flexible, you can actually set up a little mini sheet down here and set up named ranges. For example, normal, time and a half, right? See the names up here, time half, normal, the normal rate, the half-time rate, right? And the double time rate. And then in your formulas up here, instead of referring to actual numbers like 40 and 50, you can put those cell references in here. See that? And that makes it more flexible. This way, if down the line management decides to change time and a half to 55 hours, you just change it here, and it updates all your data in your sheet. Those are named ranges, and I cover those in my Excel classes. I hope you've enjoyed this free tip. There's lots more like it on my website, excellearningzone.com. There are lots of free videos, tips, tutorials, sample sheets, and lots more. YouTube viewers, go to excellearningzone.com/YouTube, and you can watch my full Excel 101 hour-long course right there on my website. Again, that's excellearningzone.com/YouTube.